you'll definitely see huge results. But over time, I realized that prospects are far more intelligent and experienced than I gave them credit for. Hello, it's Joanna Slater and welcome back. Today, I'm going to share 5 practical tips to help build trust quickly over every call. One of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn in sales is this: if a prospect doesn't trust you, they won't listen and they definitely won't buy. I've made my share of mistakes, and I remember one of my very first calls where I rushed through the pitch, promised way too much, and then wondered why the person on the other end hung up. That day I realized trust is everything. Here's the tricky part. Over the phone, you don't have eye contact to rely on. You only have your voice and words. So let's crack on. How to build trust quickly on every call. Be calm and professional. Some of the most trusted salespeople I've ever listened to sounded calm, relaxed, and completely comfortable in themselves. People trust calmness. Now, before I make a call, I remind myself that I'm not there to pressure anyone or even perform like an actor. When you stay calm and emotionally controlled, you sound more experienced, more trustworthy, and far more credible. Even when they sound difficult, staying composed and calm helps reassure your prospect. Just think about it. If you sound uncertain, it naturally makes people question your credibility, even in those awkward conversations. I remember speaking to a prospect and he was really angry that he'd even got a phone call from me. I kept calm, I apologised, and I said I wouldn't call him again. And I repeated, I'm truly sorry for the call and I do wish you well. And to my amazement, he calmed down and responded, thank you. And well, I do have a few minutes to spare. Obviously, the way I handled the conversation, I'd gained his trust. Never overpromise. One of the quickest ways to lose credibility on a sales call is making promises you simply can't guarantee. Early on, I used to think I needed to make everything sound amazing in order to impress people. I'd say things like, this will completely transform your business, or you'll definitely see huge results. But over time, I realized that prospects are far more intelligent and experienced than I gave them credit for. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually isn't. Now, instead of making bold promises, I focus on being realistic. For example, I might say, many of our clients have seen strong results and I'll be happy to explore whether this could work for you as well. That sounds more believable than guaranteeing outcomes way out of your control. The truth is, trust is built when people feel you're being genuine and not trying to oversell. Sometimes sounding realistic is far more persuasive than sounding overly impressive. Be honest when you don't know. Another one of my biggest turning points in sales was the first time I admitted to a prospect that I didn't know an answer to a question and would have to get back to them. At the time, I thought I would sound very inexperienced. But to my surprise, it had the complete opposite effect. The prospect actually said, thank you for being honest. Most people would have made something up. And honestly, I did think about it for a second. But that moment taught me honesty builds trust far faster than pretending to know everything. So now, if I really don't know the answer to a question, I'll simply say, that's a great question. Let me check and get back to you. Prospects will respect you more when they know you're being truthful and transparent. Share stories and examples. I learned that prospects feel far more confident when they can hear real stories and examples instead of just general sales talk. I remember speaking to a prospect who was having ongoing problems with the production from a previous supplier. Instead of jumping straight into a sales pitch on how great we are, and that never happens with us. I shared a story about another client I'd worked with who recently had experienced very similar production challenges and how we addressed them. Straight away they became more engaged because they could see that I generally understood the situation they were facing and how we could potentially help. Sometimes a simple real-life story is far more powerful than a long sales presentation. Respect their time and decisions. This one took me a while to really understand in sales. Early on, I thought persistence meant pushing through, maybe talking over objections or trying to squeeze everything into the call, even when the person on the other end sounded busy. But I quickly learned that approach doesn't work. It damages it. So on my opening call, if I say, I'll just take 2 minutes of your time, I'll make sure I stick to it. That simple act alone builds trust. If someone isn't interested, I don't try and drag the conversation out or pressure them. I might try and find out the reason why, but then I simply thank them for their time and leave on a positive note. Because even when someone says no, in the moment, they often remember how you treated them. And that respectful approach is exactly what opens the door for a future conversation when the timing suits them better. So let's recap on the 5 ways that build trust quickly on sales calls. Be calm and professional. Calmness creates trust and credibility. Never overpromise. Never make promises you cannot guarantee. Be honest when you don't know. Honesty builds trust. Share stories and examples. Real life stories have power. Respect their time and decisions. It can open the door to further conversations. Trust takes seconds to lose, but only minutes to build if you approach your calls in the right way. I hope you found this helpful, and don't miss next week's video where I'll be talking about listening skills. It just might be the one for you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.